So you talked a little bit about how you feel about immigration and what you'll do, but what are you going to do to like actually put your plan into effect?
So the problem with immigration right now is that currently in the Middle East, as we all know, there's a problem with Islamic terrorism, and I think that they have clearly posed a threat in saying they want to eliminate the Western way of life and Western civilization. So that being said, we need to make sure that the people coming into our country are people that are going to contribute to our society and not pose a threat to the great citizens that already live here.
Thank you.
Next. Darren.
Go ahead.
Nope, the other Darren.
Great, this question is for Will. Do you believe that mental health screenings and background checks are enough to keep guns from falling into the wrong hands? How extensive will these checks be?
Yes, so here's the thing. Obviously, the 10th Amendment of the United States Constitution grants states rights to dictate as they want in a lot of categories. Now, that being said, obviously, the gun laws in Texas are a lot different than the gun laws in Massachusetts. So I think what the national background check system would do is it would put a system in place so that each state would still have the right to kind of license their firearms and give people licensing for certain guns, such as the right to a concealed carry or the right to own an assault rifle. They would still be able to do that, but there would just be a system in place where everybody's records would be in, so that say another mass shooting did occur, hopefully it never does happen again, but we could go back in that system and say, okay, this gun was purchased by this person that had this background, and you could check to see if they had a clean background or not.
Anyone have a gun question for Colin? Go ahead, thank you, Jeff.
Who's to say that even if somebody does buy that gun, it won't fall into the wrong hands, because someone could buy it and then it could go to like a suicidal teenager or just like anybody who's interested in doing something like that. Like there's no like any type of strict follow like laws that they have to go through to like actually make sure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands.
Is that for me or for
That's for Colin.
Okay.
Well, there's this plan to institute, it's called the Brady Bill, to institute background checks so that you can't sell a gun legally from person to person, private parties. So you have to get it from a gun dealer.
Nope. Cole, go ahead. Question for Colin.
When reviewing some of your, this is for Colin, I'll say that. When reviewing some of your statements, you have simply left blank. What information can you give us today that supports that you'll actually put effort in as your job as a governor? Some of these statements are like the U.S. economy, you decide to leave blank. Taxes, you decide to leave blank. And then abortion, you quoted that you want to keep it vague.
Well, I think on the abortion topic, I think it's a personal decision between a woman and her doctor. The economy, I have plans to eliminate the national debt. Want to engage in entitlement reforms, cut and constrain defense and other spending, and engage in comprehensive tax reform.
Very good. Who's the question for?
So you said that you believe that abortion is a woman's personal decision. So would you support a third trimester abortion?
Well, I think that I've never been put in that position, obviously, because as a man, I've never had to deal with that. So I think that I would have to have more experience in that situation to answer that question.
Very good. Question for Will.
What is your view on abortion?
So my view on abortion is very simple. Roe v. Wade is the law of the land, plain and simple. Therefore, the Supreme Court is the only one that can change it, or if you become a senator, you have the ability to pass stuff through the Supreme Court as well. So as the governor of all of Ames, I have no role in dictating whether or not a woman can make that personal decision. And like Colin just said, especially as two men, it's a decision that is between a woman, her family, and her doctor. It's one of the toughest decisions a woman can make. That being said, so I just don't think the federal government has a direct role in infringing upon that, and Roe v. Wade's the law of the land right now. So if that was up for being changed, then we could discuss that, but as of right now, it is the way it is.
Very good. Next. My people, remember, my people, you're writing a story about this, so look for a couple of very interesting things for your little stories. Go ahead, Kaylee. Question for who? Remember, everyone's asking too, so I'll call you.
Colin, you said you want to treat addiction as a disease, but what else could you do to help addiction that hasn't already been done?
Well, I want to put more emphasis on punishing the dealers versus the users. So instead of putting people in jail for dealing with addiction, you would put them in a rehab center, and the people who are selling drugs would receive criminal punishment.
Any follow-up on that? We have a question on drugs?
Doesn't really follow up on drugs.
It's okay. Move forward.
This is Colin Green. Looking at your statements on tax, you simply stated, ask Colin, would you mind sharing more?
Sorry, can you repeat that question?
Looking at your statements on tax, you simply stated, ask Colin, would you mind sharing more?
Ask Colin, talking about the website?
No,
The
like
website?
on the list of your policies, under taxes, it says, ask Colin in all caps.
I think the question is on what are your ideas on tax reform, or any ideas you have on
What do you
taxes?
think on taxes and how to reform it?
Well, I think that we need to put higher taxes on the rich because they're paying not as much as they should by the amount of income they make.
Very good. Any follow-up, any tax questions? Anyone else have questions on entitlements? 4? Who's the 4?
Oh, no, it kind of was just like an add-on to that.
Who are you asking to? Okay.
How come you think that like people, like the wealthier people should pay more if like they're basically getting taken away what they're supposed to be earning when like poor people already have an easy start by not having to give more for the tax?
Well, it should be a percentage-based tax plan. So if you your higher income, you would pay more because it's the percentage it's the money you have.
With the tax
To
plan
who?
already in place, with the tax plan already in place, my dad pays over 50% of his income, and I feel like if you were to raise it anymore, I feel like that would not be very beneficial, especially since a lot of people who are taking welfare right now are not really pushed towards getting jobs. So how would you answer that?
Well, I don't have any information on what tax bracket you're in, so I wouldn't know what to talk about that. But in terms of welfare, I think that it should be a need-based welfare. So, like, as long as the government knows that you're working towards finding a job, you can keep your welfare system.
Question for Will. Bridget?
So he says he wants to raise taxes for rich people, and you seem interested in that. How would you do that differently?
Well, that is quite frankly preposterous if you ask me. Like you said, your father was probably a very hardworking man, giving half of his money to the federal government. And that money is probably going to a lot of programs such as Obamacare, or for, like we were just talking about with a lot of these social programs that just simply aren't effectively used and are misused by people that are on these programs. So I think that personally, progressive tax rates are not necessarily an evil thing, but in a very capitalistic society, trying to put almost like a socialist type of tax bracket on the rich does just not make sense. I think if we had a tax bracket from like the 12 to 24% range, that still has a higher tax rate on people that are making more money, but it still allows people that have worked very hard to generate these amounts of wealth to kind of keep that wealth. And that way we can and when you have lower taxes on business, it allows them to grow, hire more people. Because as of right now, when a business starts making more and more money, their taxes go up. So if I'm owning a small business and my taxes are go up, and therefore my revenue is not really going up, I no longer have the ability to hire a lot more people. So I think that's can be a very big, can kind of put the brakes on our economy.
Jake?
This question is also for Will. How do you plan to lower student debt while also lowering the taxes?
So actually, the student debt, one of the reasons student debt has gone up a lot in recent years is the government is giving out a lot of money to cover college costs, and obviously college costs are through the roof right now. Lowering taxes is one of those things where if people are making more money, I think they'll be better able to afford college. I think that if we wanted to reform the student debt program right now and how government is giving out money to students, I would definitely be open to that. I think that we should focus more on how kids are doing in school. For example, like you could set up programs where, say a kid gets straight A's for 2 or 3 years of high school, then you could have a certain lump sum of money for the government saying, all right, you perform well in high school, that clearly is hopefully going to transcend over to college, so we'll give you a break in that sense.
So with that, like,
Who was the question for?
Will,
Okay.
what about kids who like don't have the opportunity to do as well in school? They're just getting
What's the thing is that if you have these programs in place and like say you go into high school knowing, okay, if I get straight A's for 4 years, I'm gonna get $20,000 to $25,000 from the federal government. As a kid, if I'm coming from a low-class community where my parents haven't gone to college and I don't see a lot of prosperity in my friends' families either, that's gonna motivate me to say, okay, I have this goal, this is how I have to achieve it, and I'll work hard to do that.
Very good, Gabby. What do you got? Who's it for?
Never mind. I don't want to ask it.
Okay. Andrew?
Question for Will. In one of your policies, you claim that you want to redo Obamacare. So what specifically do you plan to redo about it? Either get rid of it or change it?
So the thing with Obamacare, I think when it first came into action in front of Congress, it was a very simple bill. It's kind of one of the first very social programs in the United States to try to implement. That being said, once it went through Congress, it was thousands of pages long. It just became way too complicated. Recently, last week, it came out that premiums are going to go up 25% all across the country, and in the state of Arizona, they're going to double, go up 100%, which is absolutely insane. I mean, you're doubling your cost of your health care in 1 year. Like, I don't know about you guys, but if I'm paying my taxes and I'm paying that health care, I'm going to be very angry about that. So I think that we can work with Obamacare to make it more affordable and kind of simplify it a little bit. And if that doesn't work, we can maybe transition to another system and we'll like focus more people on Medicare and stuff like that. Because it would be preposterous just to take millions of people that are on the system and just throw them on the streets, because that's just not right.
Any healthcare questions for Colin while we're on this topic? None? All right, who's still up? Michaela, what do you got? Question 4.
Colin, how will you help and spread the word about global warming?
Well, I have a campaign Snapchat, campaign Twitter, and I have campaign website. So the most important thing at this point is getting educated so we can stop the problem. So with the Twitter and the Snapchat, I plan on spreading the word to let everyone know about the environment.
Gabby?
So global warming, like, if it's getting worse, because you said it was like a really big threat to us, why is it still cold here if it's getting that much worse?
Question 4, Colin?
Yeah.
Well, in the last 2 decades alone of the 21st century have been the hottest in the past 400 years, so it is getting hotter. It's just not as like a noticeable, like in the every day-to-day temperature.
Another question? Go ahead, Dylan.
Question for Will.
Paul Shannon in your class?
Do you believe in global warming?
Of course I believe in global. Actually, here's the thing. I don't think we should call it global warming because it's climate change, right? Obviously, it's still cold in a lot of places. Our climate is changing. So here's the thing. Like, I think that we all are educated and know about climate change. It's just from now on, what are we going to do? If you look at greenhouse gas emissions right now, they're currently being reduced 2% every year under the Obama administration. That is one of the things I think he's doing very well with. He's kind of working to make our country a lot cleaner. So I think we just have to continue in that direction where we're cutting emissions and we're focusing a lot of our money and our efforts towards working for renewable energy such as wind, solar, nuclear, and geothermal. Because once we can transition over to that, we can have a much more sustainable economy, and I think we're going to see increases in positive ways and all across the board in multiple things.
Question 4, Colin?
So you talked a little bit about the drinking age and how you want it to be 18. Why do you feel it should be that?
I never said that I wanted to change the drinking age to 18.
Drinking age, how can people go to war at the age of 18 but have to wait till age 21 for alcohol?
I never said that at any point. I was never.
Well, that doesn't even mean that you want to change
It
the
says
alcohol
it.
to 18, but that is a good point still.
That's what it says.
That was never
Then
part
what's
of
your
my
view on the
policy.
drinking age?
No, like it actually says it.
And what is your view on the drinking age?
What's your view? It should remain firm in age 21.
Very good. Other questions? Go ahead.
I have a question for William Hogan. Under your policies on social reform, you said to strengthen relationships between law enforcement and communities, and knowing the state of the relationship right now, how do you plan on restoring that relationship?
Well, that is a very tough issue in America right now. I'm sure, as we all know, relationships between law enforcement and the communities are very tense right now. And I think that we need to work together to start a dialect. I think one of the things the Boston Police Department has done very well is that they've worked to diversify their police department. I'm not saying we should get every single police department to meet a quota of saying you have to hire this many African American police officers or this many Latino police officers. But I think that when you hire, even just having 1 or 2 cops that work consistently in one neighborhood and build that relationship with people in their communities, that is positive wavelengths that go out all across through the whole entire police departments and all throughout the community. Because if you can have one community that says, oh, this police officer is always having our back, he's always defending us, he listens to us, he does his job the right way, and they tell their friends about that just through word of mouth, I think we can spread that message. And once that dialect starts in a positive way, I think it'll be a pretty easy climb from there.
Kate?
This question is for Will. You said you want to decriminalize marijuana, then legalize once further research is available. What kind of research are you looking for?
So here's the thing, right now, especially if you look at the ballot question in Massachusetts, if you were to legalize marijuana tomorrow, you could go out and smoke as much weed as you want. You could do whatever, you could take an edible, do like whatever would make you really high. And there's no way, say you hit somebody on the way home driving your car, which happened to a state trooper in Massachusetts. There's no way to test how high somebody is. Like say, for example, with alcohol, if you're above a 0.8 on a DUI with straw pot, then you're intoxicated. So you're going to go to jail, or you're going to serve some type of time. So I think that if you, especially now in states, like you look at in a lot of southern states, such as Alabama, Mississippi, if you get caught smoking marijuana in public 3 times, you go to jail for 10 years. That just does not seem right to me. So I think if we work to decriminalize it in every single state, that way people that want to use it can use it without being persecuted by law enforcement. By the time that happens, I think we'll have the technology available to legalize it so that it can be controlled and people can be held accountable for the mistakes they make if they operate under marijuana negatively.
Orion?
Colin, what's your view on question 4?
I think that marijuana, the edibles is a big problem because they're like dressed up like candy, so they're being advertised towards kids, and it's unsafe for kids to have the edible candy. But I think that if it's taxed and regulated and there's more research done on it, I think that the legalization of marijuana could be a good thing for our economy.
I have a question, Colin. So you said you wanted to focus on punishing dealers more and like working with users and like what was I gonna say? Rehabilitation clinics and stuff like that. But if someone's possessing a Schedule I narcotic like heroin or something, do you believe they should be punished or just go straight to rehab?
I think that it's all about the intent to sell. So like if they have a certain amount, then it should be a criminal thing because there's intent to sell, and that's like the bigger problem. But if they're using and it's like in their system, then they should be sent to a rehabilitation clinic.
So you're saying if there was 20 people walking around the streets with like small amounts of heroin, they shouldn't be punished?
They should talk to a doctor, and they should be treated so that it's not an issue for them anymore.
So they can possess it?
I don't think they should, obviously. I think there should be some sort of like criminal reaction to that, but it shouldn't be imprisonment.
Follow-up questions on drugs or anything related?
Yeah, for Colin. You say that you want to strengthen the rehabilitation centers or programs. How do you plan to do that?
Well, there's already money towards taxes. Like taxes are paying for prisons and jails, so the money that isn't being spent on the jails for those in prison for drugs would be put toward the clinics.
Renee? Amelia, what do you got? Oh, Rhythm, sorry.
Why do you think that the death penalty will solve problems such as future murders and escaping felons?
Well, the death penalty, some would say that death penalty is almost a release from the people who are serving life in prison. So they're more unhappy in prison, like in life in prison, than they would be if they were to die like lethal injections or like the electric chair or something like that. And it also saves money because they're less likely to have a second court case if they're on life, because when they're being given the death penalty, they want to make sure they get it right, so they're going to go through court again to make sure that this person is in fact guilty, and that's less likely to happen if they're in prison for life versus getting the death penalty.
This question's for Will. What is your view on the death penalty?
Wait, so you are pro death penalty, is that clear?
No, no, against death penalty.
You're against death penalty? I'm against death penalty just because the cost of putting somebody in death row is absolutely preposterous. It costs 3 times more to put somebody in death row than it does just to incarcerate them for life. I think that there have been multiple people that have been found innocent after they were put to death. So that being said, I just don't think it's a system that our country needs to have in place anymore.
Jasmine?
Colin, you just stated that you're against the death penalty, but in your policy it says you are for it, so.
The death penalty, like Will just said, is a far more expensive and also like depressing way to deal with criminal behavior. So I think stance on death penalty is against.
So,
But your policy says otherwise.
He's changing the background.
And then follow up, Bianca, go ahead, another question for,
Will, so Common Core was designed to have an equality of education throughout the U.S., and you propose to get rid of it, but wouldn't this make education unequal in the U.S.?
No, because I really think that education systems across state to state are very tough. I think for administrations, such as the great administration in our school, it basically determines what we taught in the classroom. And times are changing, if you ask me, and I think we can all agree on that. So I think every single year there's new developments in education and how we're teaching our kids. And I think that we should prepare more kids for STEM careers, science, technology, math, and art and stuff like that. So I just don't think that Common Core is progressing us towards that at a rate that is going to help our citizens and our students.
Will, in education, you said optional standardized testing. So what impact do you think that will make on our education system?
So I think that, I don't know, just talking to a lot of kids, like a lot of my peers, I think that it's tough. I think a lot of people do very well in high school, and say you get like a 3.8 to a 4 GPA, but you do bad in your SATs. I just don't think one test should negatively affect your whole application process to college. So I think that if you do well in the SATs, that's great. You should put it on your application. That can be a positive thing that can help you. But that being said, like if you do negative on it, and I know, for example, I was at Bryant 2 weeks ago doing a tour, and they said, we understand that some kids aren't very good at testing, and the pressure of taking a standardized test is very tough for them. So we don't require that. And I think that's just a cool mindset where, in the sense that you can still have your GPA and all your resume. I think that can still help you get into colleges. So like I think that standardized testing should only be able to help you, not harm you.
Will, you talked about a program for student loans, but how is that fair for children born into a life with not as many opportunities, for example, part-time jobs, unable to afford tutors or learning disabilities?
Wait, can you clarify that? So
You said that there should be a program for student loans, right?
yeah.
Like if you get straight A's or something, you get more money. Well, what if the kid doesn't have, like, what if they have a learning disability or they have part-time jobs or if they can't, like, afford a tutor to help them get those straight A's?
Well,
How's it fair for those children?
Well, that's a good point. Well, that goes back to Common Core. So if we say like obviously every single school is different, and the just kind of like the structure of the community and like how the different departments are is different school to school. So I think if you give schools the power to kind of dictate, all right, we have this percentage of kids that need this much help, and you let teachers kind of put that into their own hands and work really one-on-one with those kids, I think that's going to better kids and have them receive a better education. And there are multiple scholarships and trusts in place right now that help kids with special needs and disabilities or to go to college and go to secondary education. So when they go into the real world and become adults, they can be prosperous.
question for Colin?
I have a question for both of them.
Okay, we'll come back to Jake, hold on.
Neither of you had any input on the U.S. economy, so what is,
We'll answer the question.
I mean, on like insert policies. Neither of you had anything about the U.S. economy, so I was wondering what your view is on that and how you plan to bring it back up.
You want to go first? Well, our first point was completely on the economy, so
That was my comment.
you can read through it.
Well, I think that we need to work on adjusting the taxes so that it's a more fair way of taxing, and I think that that's going to help our economy in the long run.
So you had a question for me too, right? So you say you want to adjust our taxes and make it more fair way of taxing, but you just said that you want to increase taxes on the wealthy. So how is that a more fair way of taxing?
That's for your debate, right?
Well, I know, it's a question for both of us, and you said that I can reply to something he said in his question,
you're
so I
not.
replied.
Jake, go ahead. Yes, who's the question for?
This is for Will. Can you just explain some of the misconceptions you want to fix about assault rifles?
So here's the thing. All right, obviously, like if you can take, so one of the most commonly assault rifles that people, a lot of politicians are always after is AR-15. Okay, so the cartridge for an AR-15 is 22 caliber. You can use that same caliber cartridge in an air rifle that requires no identification whatsoever to buy. So I think Colin talked about on his platform banning automatic weapons. I don't necessarily, you can't ban weapons, I mean, especially ban guns in America because guns are such a big part of our culture. But I think a good midway thing to do is just focus on automatic weapons, because the only reason you're using an automatic weapon is probably to shoot at a gun range. If you're using it outside of that, I don't really know what the point of that is, but I think we should work to kind of find a middle ground. So, for example, automatic weapons. Say you buy one, it has to stay at a gun range or a military base because that's the only place you're going to be shooting it. I just don't there's no need for you to have a fully automatic weapon in your house. But like some guns that are referred to as assault rifles can be used for varmint hunting or used for competitive shooting events and teaching kids such as people in like junior ROTC to shoot guns and get ready for the military.
Good. Questions for Colin?
Why will you ban the use of fully automatic rifles?
Fully automatic rifle is a rifle it's a military rifle. There's no need for a citizen to have a military rifle unless, like Will just said, they were at a gun range.
Question for Will. So moving on to a topic of like national security. So frequently in the news, it's been quotes like about the borders and like Trump wants to build a wall and everything. Do you have anything to do with the borders?
Yeah, so I think think building a wall, I can understand why people do want to build a wall. I think we're in such large debt right now that economically it doesn't make sense to build a wall. I think we can definitely strengthen our borders and we work so that people coming in this country, like I said before, we guarantee they're going to be contributing to our society. They're not going to be posing a threat to our great citizens that live here already.
This is